Oh, you damn right. Let's go house divided on a Friday. I told you we were going to get both sides of football with friends, and we're going to do it. Cody Carpentier jumping in. First off, let's give a shout out to Ketch. He's dealing with some family stuff late in the week. Hope everything is good in the Ketchum house. Hope everything is good in y'all's houses as well. And this house divided is going to be updates on the minor injuries Texas has had. Cody's been peeking in on a couple of the rivals and what's going on with them. We thought that'd be a good update. And I got a crazy stat that Sark is chasing at the end of the show. We'll get a little buy or sell in there. I put a buy or sell together for Cody. Only one of them will possibly make me feel really old. We'll get to all that. You guys jump on in. Our man Chris Bennett is already in. And yes, I do believe he's a supercomputer, but either way, he is in there. Also, Text Blonde 5, we see you. You are real. And for some reason, the smacking the head emoji. I'm not sure what that's for, but hey, we'll hopefully not make you smack your head. Before we really get into this, Cody, first off, thank you for doing it. Secondly, how are you? Because you pulled something off this week that I've never seen in either radio, YouTube, or whatever, doing the show you did with like something lodged in your body. Like, man, are you all right?
Well, that the way you phrase that makes me want to say pause. But I'm doing good. I've dealt with it's gonna sound also weird, like a swallowing problem. My esophagus is a little tight. So if I don't
Okay.
chew up, you guys know how much I like steak. Me and Alex talk about it every night. Texas beef traders on the show, and I eat meat a lot. I eat a lot of chicken, and like those are two things that my body has always been a little combative with. If I don't chew the meat up all the way and
Mm-hmm.
swallow it, it just kind of sort of gets lodged. And probably the worst choking situation I've had in my life was on, I don't even know what night that was, Wednesday night, Tuesday night. So we got her dealt with. Probably going to go into the doctor and get that thing fixed in the next couple of weeks. So we got through it, though. I appreciate that, Chad.
Dude, I was impressed. I went back and I watched and I'm looking for it. I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to tell. I mean, you really powered through that. True pro.
I
And go
I
ahead.
told Alex, I told Alex, I was like, dude, like you'll notice it. Like I'll run out of air and like I'll just have to lay it off to you really quickly. But I tried to stay low key. I tried to come in there. I didn't want to leave Alex hanging because it literally happened like an hour before the show. And I was like, oh gosh.
That's crazy, man. Well, I'm glad you're better now, and thank you for jumping in. We got some good stuff for the people today. Definitely a reminder there to check out Texas Beef Traders. Also, jump on in the chat. We showed you Chris Bennett's in there. We showed you Texas Blonde is in there. A lot of the regulars have jumped in, and a lot of good stuff today. If you want to throw us a super chat, it will go right to the top of the list. And speaking of top of the list, let's put Specs at the top of the list. They are the ones that bring you the chat every day, and they're celebrating an anniversary. Check out this stuff.
Have you heard the news? Specs is turning 63, and we're celebrating you. Whether you're looking for whiskey, canned cocktails, or wine, Specs has it all with Texas-sized savings all month long. Specs. Cheers to save.
There you go. Happy anniversary to Specs. 63 years. I was at Specs last week getting stocked up on a couple things. All right. So, Cody, we're going to start with these injury updates for Texas. Got 3 pass catchers that are a little dinged up. And so far, the updates are pretty good. I mean, they're not perfect, but I think maybe the best news is the no news on DeAndre Moore. That injury was there. I don't even know if they've officially acknowledged what it is, whether it's toe specific or it's foot in general, but no real big updates there, which I think is pretty good news. And they think, he's going to miss. You have him out for the spring. There's no reason to test him there, but it feels like he'll be ready to go. And then when you go to the other receiver, the update then, and obviously we talked about, Wingo and his situation, and Wingo's is the hamstring. Good update. It as good as it can be, I think, update in the war room last night from Anwar that he's hearing if this was game week, he'd go. He would give it a go. Obviously, let's just take the Ohio State game. It's the next game in 148 days, I think now. So if this was game week, they would be ready to go with Wingo. That's, pretty good news. So that's out the spring, but this is not something that's, crazy bad. It's not one of those really bad hamstrings at this point.
Yeah, I think you'd probably feel the same way or similar about DeAndre Moore too. I would imagine if they were ready to play, he probably would be somewhat in the ball game. I mean, he's a guy that got hurt in the middle of the season this last year. Kind of just, I think it was the toe that lingered, and we really never heard anything about it until that postseason press conference from Sark, a month ago now. Positive news though, yeah, like you said on Wingo, nothing of an update on Washington, the tight end. The other injury though that I was thinking of in this whole thing was the Christian Clark thing, man. I had seen the update from Anwar come through about Christian Clark, the second year running back, but then I love these little tidbit videos that like the Texas Athletics or the Texas football like Twitter or Instagram account drops. It feels like they come out at like 10 p.m. It's like a 60-second montage, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see in there,
get you excited.
Who's the running back that's taking the snap? Like when they go through drills and stuff, right? You go look at I look for little nuances because that's like the only practice that I get to see. I don't get to go to practice like Alex does and Jason and Onwar. I don't get to see these guys up in person, right? So what I'm looking for is like these little tidbit videos. And so I'm looking and I go, wait, who's this guy? And so Christian Clark was like doing workouts, like not workouts. He was doing his practice drills. He was the next guy in line after Travion Wisner. So it was 5 and then it was 6 and he looked good. And again, I'm taking this is from a little tiny tidbit videos that the Texas football account drops every day. But I was like, hold up, man. Like everything's in line there. Like Anwar said, like, he's like, he's getting close to being full healthy. And it's like, you see he's in full pads. He's out there running around. And I guess the expectation coming off an Achilles was like, hey man, we'll be lucky if he's ready by fall, but this is a whole different level of recovery. So to see them say he's in, it's a phenomenal recovery and he's in a great place. Like that's got to be ecstatic when you think about this running back room that dealt with so many injuries last year. So I know the receiving room has been kind of the forefront of the conversation, including Jordan Washington, but I think the Christian Clark thing it's maybe the news of the spring so far.
Yeah, and I know Anwar got into that on Old Fashioned, and you read it the same way I did, and I know the graphics guys just put out something recently. I mean, that word phenomenal kind of got everybody to go, wait a minute, phenomenal, okay. And it's just gotten more and more positive with Christian Clark. So if you're a Longhorn fan, that is probably your best, not probably, that's your best injury update so far, because it's not just that he's kind of back. It's not just that he's sort of back. It is now, Anwar is reporting that, his sources are saying, hey, this guy's he's going to compete to be an impact back for this team. And they know it right now. So that's big on Christian Clark. The other one to update, I did find a little bit on Jordan Washington in terms of this MRI. There are multiple reports out. Specifically, I saw SI with a report. But the big takeaway on Jordan Washington is kind of what you're looking for if you're a Texas fan. We hadn't heard anything big, so that felt like good news. And now, from what I'm seeing today, no surgery. They don't think there's going to be surgery required, and he's going to miss a few practices. What does a few mean? Probably the rest of spring. You're not going to there would be no purpose for the last 3 or 4 or 5 practices Washington to come back. So no surgery, Cody, is what I saw today. And I'm like, well, there's the news Texas fans have kind of been looking for. Obviously, as the days go on and spring goes on, there'll be more updates on orangebloods.com about what that is. But again, it's not the absolute best news. The best news is they'd all be practicing and they'd all be awesome. But for Jordan Washington, also feels mild. It doesn't feel crazy. No surgery. Obviously, great news because the shoulders can be so many different versions when you have something like that. Especially when it's a tight end, like a position. I don't think of guys usually falling on their shoulder, but it feels like it's the good version of it. No surgery required.
Yeah, that's massive. And it's weird that injuries have been a forefront of the conversation this past week, but when you think about it, like coming off of the season, obviously the DeAndre Moore thing is there, and you got the Baxter and Clark stuff, but even like Anthony Hill was banged up coming out of the season. You fast forward to now, it's Brad Spence, when he came to campus, he was banged up. and they're weathering Wingo, they're weathering through Washington, and none of them are serious. That's the great part. And if they can continue to weather it and just get through spring, and you just got to continue to think back to what Sark said. He's like, these guys just came off of a 16-game season. We want to get them through like 15 OTA practices, not amping them up, ramping them up for games and these big scrimmages. So they're weathering the storm right now, and hopefully they can get through it pretty unscathed and get healthy through the offseason again.
Yeah. So a lot of relative good news on the injury update front today. We definitely wanted to pass all that along. So pretty good news in terms of those updates. By the way, to Mark, who's apparently done some math today, the Aggies natty is 23 years older than Specs. Mark, wow. Like, you guys love to remind me about 1939. I've never been quite reminded that way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mark. By the way, if you do enjoy Aggie sadness, I can give you a little bit of it with this stat coming up later on that Texas is trying to chase, because somebody did ask me to look the stat up for the Aggies. It's a little different, Longhorns and Aggies, when you look up this particular stat. We will get to that as we roll on. Also, let's thank some of our great partners. You heard Cody talking about steak earlier and Texas Beef Traders. I'll give you a place to go get a steak if you're looking for a great steakhouse. It's my kind of steakhouse. It's Taste on Main. And what do I mean by my kind of steakhouse? Casual. That's what I mean. A place where I could go and wear a t-shirt if I wanted to. A place where there isn't a dress code that we're worrying about. Those stuffier, high-end, crazy tuxedo dress code kind of, that's not my kind of steakhouse. But with Taste on Main, we're talking about the people that do Hayes City Store. This is Travis, Tamara, and that crew. It's a steakhouse in downtown Buda, and man, it's incredible. A couple different bar locations inside. There's one inside. There's a great outside treehouse bar area. If you get great spring weather, definitely go check it out there. The steaks are incredible. I learned about Oscar style. I didn't know what that was, but I love steak and I love seafood, and Oscar style is a great way to go. The steaks are awesome. The whiskey drinks are great. The Sam Elliott's mustache is usually how I start my experience at Taste on Main. The desserts are great. All the little details that they're so good at, you're going to love it. Taste on Main. And then you're in downtown Buda. Sometimes we just stroll up and down the street a little bit, hit some antique shops and, all that kind of good stuff. We've done it for anniversaries. We've done it for birthday celebrations. They've got a great brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Get your reservations for that if you like. Taste on Main, downtown Buda. And make sure that you cut all pieces up properly and chew properly and all that good stuff. Right, Cody?
Yeah, man. That's a lesson learned, hopefully.
Oh, dude, we were worried about you, man. We can't have that. We can't have steak taking people down. That'd be the worst way. Of all the worst ways to die, right? Death by steak literally would be terrible.
I mean, for people that know me, though, I'm like 90% carnivore, so it wouldn't be that big of a shocker, but to not get too sad, I'll just right off the path quickly. Mm-hmm. My brother and sister's great grandpa died at the dinner table eating white bread.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah. Dude. White bread took him out. And I have no blood relation to him. But it's just kind of random that you
gotta be careful.
Choking issues.
Crazy. Got to be careful about that. All right. Thank y'all. If y'all want to send us a chat, we'll get to it. If you want to send us a super chat, it will go right to the top of the list. So good injury updates for Texas overall in terms of the two receivers and the tight end. Also today on a Friday show, when I knew Cody was coming in, I thought, well, this would be a good time to kind of keep the friends close and enemies closer. Every week, Cody does a behind enemy lines article on orangebloods.com, something that the crew came up with, and Cody jumped right into it, does an incredible job with this. And I've always loved this idea, Cody, especially being who I am, being an Aggie that's covering the Longhorns or whatever. I've always felt like Texas fans have a certain layer of, as the season's going along, and even as this time of year, recruiting and other stuff, it is taking a peek at what the Sooners are doing, taking a peek at the Aggies. And I guess we could extend to Arkansas on some things. But today I want to stick with Sooners and Aggies because I thought your reports on each were interesting this week. Let me throw up a QR code for the people and remind you if you want. Actually, you know what? We got your QR code set right there. What am I doing? Lower left, that QR code will get you signed up for orangebloods.com like that. Easiest way to do it. Get the great content from Cody and all the guys at orangebloods.com. So, Cody, tell me a little bit in your digging on OU this week. The receiver kind of jumped out to me. Tell me a little bit about Giovanni Gibson, what you're hearing about him, and is he really in a discussion to go be their wide receiver 1 this year?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Just to give everybody a purview that hasn't read or hasn't seen this on Orange Bloods, it's Behind Enemy Lines. And basically the idea behind it is to kind of take a look at behind obviously the programs in A&M, like Chad just said, A&M, Oklahoma, Arkansas, like Georgia, Florida at times. But basically just kind of to give us a look at their roster management, their coaching, their playing, their staffing, all these things. I want to learn everything so that when you get to that point, this is my whole goal. When you get to that point and you get to that week, or if you're just in a bar talking to somebody that's, hey, what do you think about I don't care about the Aggies, but I'll tell you what they did, right? That's my whole point here with this thing. But Oklahoma's receiver Giovanni Gibson from Arkansas Pine Bluff was their addition this last offseason. They lost a couple of guys in the portal. They brought in Giovanni Gibson. He was the 26th ranked wide receiver in the portal this past season, but he's a guy that's 6'3", 205 pounds. He was all conference this last year at Arkansas Pine Bluff. I jokingly call him Arkansas Peanut Butter because they're UAPB, right? And it's the
You know what, Cody? I always say I feel old when you're on the show with me, but in this case, I like that you felt old. That was like a good old man joke that you inserted in there. And I even saw an Orange Bloods poster, gave you a little bit of a little attaboy off of that. Well done. Well done.
I love it because it's like these small schools that nobody really knows or cares about. And it's like, not really a lot of expectation. We joked about it on the show all the time on Football with Friends. And it's like, man, they went out and lost Jaleel Farouk and they added some dude from, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Like, what's that really mean? They had some guy from Western Carolina. What's that really mean? And it sounds like Giovanni Gibson. And when you look at the profile, I've watched a little bit of his sophomore film. I have the sophomore film clipped into the post over there in Orange Bloods, but this guy has 70 catches last year, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. And I know all the Texas fans are going to say, well, I don't care. This guy did that at Arkansas Pine Bluff. But here's the note that I got from practice when I'm going over there behind enemy lines from Oklahoma is, in that quote, the portal guys have made plays. Giovanni Gibson, namely, will be the number 1 wide receiver. He had a touchdown in live practice and a few situations as well. I think he will be the playmaker for the room, maybe even more than what we expected from Deion Burks. Deion Burks, the receiver from last year's portal that came over from Purdue. Yeah. Remember, he was in the conversation with Juice Wells and kind of around the same time as Isaiah Bond in the portal. And Oklahoma went the Burks route. Ole Miss went the Juice Wells route. Texas kind of waited a little bit, went the Bond and Golden route. But it looks like Giovanni Gibson is going to be the main guy. And the quote in here was said that he's got great rapport with John Mateer and even Hawkins to a little bit. And his 50-50 balls are more 70-30 balls, which is like something you hear namely around like NFL circles or high-end college circles where it's like, man, that's a difference maker. Like when you throw that ball to Julio Jones, that was an 80-20 ball, not a 50-50 ball where it generally is. So it looks like they got a receiver. What does that mean? We'll see.
Yeah, and I think the thing that jumped out to me, the idea that he's above Burks possibly. And I'll admit to not knowing, like, are those two guys the same exact kind of receiver? Would they be on the field at the same time or whatever? But if they're saying that he might be able to make more of an impact than Burks, that stands out. So it's just a name to file away. Like we always say, it's keep your friends close, enemies closer. Giovanni Gibson is the name. Because every once in a while, Cody, I know the other school, people will always want to look at that and say, well, really, come on. But we know sometimes when these guys get their opportunities, what they can do with, like the kid Noah Thomas, that was at A&M and now is going to be at Georgia. Wasn't he? I think his first school was New Mexico. Is that where he came from? Do I have that right? He came from a much smaller school. And
did he do the Aggie thing? Isn't that New Mexico Aggies?
New Mexico State is the Aggies.
New Mexico State is Aggies.
New Mexico is the Lobos. I want to say that's him. I may have that wrong, but I know it was a smaller school. The Aggies had, what was the cat's name? Is it Javon Walker? He was from Grand Valley. I mean, sometimes there are transfers and they end up being pretty good. Oklahoma's going to need more than pretty good, though, to your point. And, they lost Farouk and Anderson and these guys that aren't there anymore that, had given them a little something. Gibson's going to have to be really, really good and pretty quickly. For those that, haven't taken a peek, Oklahoma will play. They host Michigan in non-conference. That's going to tell us a lot. Plus, as we talk about these two teams, Oklahoma and A&M, by the time we get through September, both of these schools will host Auburn. So if you're a Texas fan and you want to get a comp game just to kind of peek at, on the 20th of September, Oklahoma hosts Auburn. The very next weekend, the Aggies do. So just kind of one of those, whatever you think of Auburn, you'll get a look at two of your rivals against them. Just something to keep in mind. So Giovanni Gibbs. And as of right now, Cody, in terms of the quarterback, I know in your write-up it mentioned Mateer and it mentioned Hawkins. Is there a discussion for Oklahoma people there, or is this Mateer's coming to take the job for sure?
No. This is Mateer's job. They say it's not an open competition, but they say it's a competition, I guess, per se. But it's definitely Mateer's job. And actually, the one quote, I don't even know if I included it in here. I don't think I did. But there was some stuff I read over on OU Insider that basically said that the staff feels good about where Michael Hawkins is, because obviously he was forced into situations last year that freshmen shouldn't really be forced into if they don't need to be, playing games in the SEC middle of the season off of a drop of a hat. And they said that they've liked where he's like grown into, given that he's competing with John Mateer. I was losing his name for a second, but he's competing with John Mateer, and it's like he's not backing away from the competition. He's actually taking a step forward into it and growing as a quarterback. So there was a positive note at least towards it, but it's definitely Mateer's job 100%. And one other note about the receiver room, you asked about kind of the layout of the room. Giovanni Gibson's the number one. Think about him as like the X and Burks as like the slot receiver, the slot target. Giovanni's going to be the guy that they probably focus on mostly, kind of like Nick Anderson. When Nick Anderson was healthy, he's obviously was banged up last year. Then he transfers to LSU. The other guy in that offense that was also hurt last year was Jaden Gibson. He's going to be more of your flanker on the opposite side. He averaged almost 27 yards per reception last year when he played. He had 14 catches for almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, or 5 touchdowns. So, it's a well put together. I would like, this is kind of like my preferred, like you get a 6'3", 205 alpha, you get a little 5'8" gadget guy, and you got this other guy that can just stretch the field, take the top off the defense. Like it's put together well, I think, for Mateer, but there's not a lot of depth behind it. A year ago, there was a ton of depth. They would argue with you on the internet that Oklahoma's got a top 3 wide receiver room in football. They ain't going to have no arguments about that this year because the depth just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Okay. So something to keep an eye on there with the Oklahoma receivers. Our man Chris Bennett throws in, didn't sorry ass OU win the Iron Bowl last year? Beat both Bama and Auburn. They did. Beat Auburn by that much. And then
that's a good note.
And beat Bama because Bama just forgot to pay attention. By the way, another note on OU, and I'll make myself real big to make this point. You see the Hall of Helmets behind me? It's been rearranged. See these 8 helmets over here? These are the 8 SEC teams that won 9 or more last year and had a winning record in conference. Texas plays one of them this year, obviously at Georgia. Oklahoma plays the other 7. The other 7. Oklahoma plays all of them, including games at Alabama, at Tennessee, and they will also travel to South Carolina. Just something to keep in mind.
Who's the one game they don't play? Is it like is it old Georgia?
It's Georgia.
Georgia.
It's Georgia. They don't play Georgia. Also, I'll just read this off again. I think it's going to become critical, Cody, as we watch Oklahoma's season. Starting on October 11th, here's what Oklahoma has. The Texas game, then they go to South Carolina, then they host Ole Miss, then they go to Knoxville, they get a week off, and then they go to Tuscaloosa. That's a 5-game stretch for Oklahoma, and that doesn't even include home games to finish with Missouri and LSU. So Oklahoma is just looking at, I mean, that the SEC did them no favors to start in this 2-year cycle. We'll see how they deal with it. Obviously, they won one nobody expected last year in the Bama game, but they also had losses people didn't really expect. Again, that Auburn game for me early is a huge barometer. The Michigan game will tell us something, and later on Missouri, like Missouri Auburn. If you're an OU fan right now, are you absolutely certain that your team is better or worse than those two? I'm not sure. Because last year you were a little better than Auburn. They threw you a pick 6. That's why you beat them. And you were not as good as Missouri. You weren't even close last year.
I think if Ketch did the blue chips thing, it would be Auburn by a bit over Oklahoma right now. Auburn's added a lot of talent these last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Jackson Arnold factor. That's going to be a very interesting one. That game's in Norman. That's going to be, I mean, will they even, I don't even know if Oklahoma has enough like spite to be like, oh, we're going to get Jackson. I think it's going to be a lot more like Jackson getting his revenge. And there's a lot more talent on that Auburn roster right now. And then you think of Missouri, man, like you just said, those are the two easiest games in the SEC for them. And Missouri's not going to roll over. Like they got Prabula, who just transferred in from Penn State, that was supposed to take the reins at Penn State if Drew Aller went to the NFL this year. He's like, nah. So Prabula goes to Missouri. Missouri's got transfers in at running back. They've got Mookie Cooper and a couple other receivers. Like they got a good roster too. And then the one that, because it's at the end, you just kind of don't look at it because it's not a part of that big stretch. But LSU might be the most difficult opponent in the SEC this year outside of Texas and Georgia. Like that roster's low. Like this is a brutal. Oklahoma thought that they had a tough schedule in 2024. 2025 is going to take this thing to a whole different level. Yeah. This is a scary schedule.
Yeah. Also, the other thing I didn't say in rolling through the end of their schedule, Cody, I didn't say Maine this time. It's not in there. That crazy easy game that mixed in, it doesn't exist in that part of the schedule. Their non-con this year is Illinois State, Michigan, at Temple, and then they play Kent State October 4th. They're done with non-con by October the 4th. Last year was very different. It's like the opposite of Bama. Bama had the Oklahoma game before the Iron Bowl last year. Very rare for them to have that type of game. This year, it's back to one of those Western Carolina, Chattanooga kind of teams for Bama. So a lot of that stuff is year to year. You got to kind of, peek in on that. Last year, at least they had that Maine game to kind of give them a breath. They do not have it this year with a Missouri LSU finish. So we'll see what happens there. A lot of good chats rolling in. Salty Q, just a weird question for me. How bad did it hurt to put the A&M helmet on the other side? You know what, Salty Q? It's more the Aggies that would hate me for what I did. Technically, by choosing it the way I did, I could have put the Aggies on the top 8 side. Because if you go look at the SEC standings right now, A&M is top 8. But then I just noticed that Ole Miss and Missouri both won 10, and they both were winning conference teams. And I thought, well, wait a minute. A&M only won 8 games. Let's be fair to these teams. So that's just me being fair. So it didn't hurt to put the Aggies over here in the shadows with OU and Arkansas and these other teams. Truth is the truth. But I do appreciate the question. How about early predictions for the Red River game? S. Roan says 65-13 with a smirk. I see what you did there. S. Roan. We would all like to see one of those type of scores go the other way. 42-17 for Sandman on the early prediction for Red River. All right, we'll talk about the Aggies and some other stuff here in a second. Real quick, off topic, but my man Chris Bennett throws out something I had not seen. Tip of the cap to Bill Schoening, who's retiring at the end of the season. CB, I had not seen that. One of my mentors in the business, the man that's responsible for all of this, the man that's responsible for letting me get into radio back in the day, legendary voice of the Longhorns back in the day, and now the Spurs, and he's going to retire. Bill, you are the man. That's very cool. Thank you for mentioning that, Mr. Bennett. Also, before we hit a little bit more Aggie talk and let Cody talk about what he thinks of the Aggies, how about a little Rogue Shop? You hear the guys talk about it all the time. Catch, Anwar, the crew. get into that website. It is one of the most extensive websites you'll ever find. I am currently living in a house with both a dog and a cat, and I'm told that Rogue Shop has stuff for pets. May need to check it out. We're all trying to get along, and Rogue Shop may have some ways that the pets can get along, and me can get along a little bit better. So Rogue Shop, check them out. One of the legendary partners around here for Orange Bloods and Orange Bloods Live. Shout out to Richard Shar and the crew at Rogue Shop. If y'all send us a super chat, you know how it works. It'll go right onto the top of the list. All right, Cody, tell me a little bit about A&M as you've been able to check in with them in the spring. What jumps out?
Oh, well, I will say the first thing that jumped out to me was a little nugget, two different nuggets. One being about the tight end position. When they released a two deep, according to Mark Passwaters over at Aggie Yale, dropped a two deep, and the tight end position. He's got two different tight end positions listed. So he's got Theo Ostrom and he's got Amari Niblack working ahead of Keati Armstrong, who Texas was recruiting this last year. But the Niblack note said A&M really needs size amongst its pass catchers, and that's where Niblack and Armstrong come in. I know he didn't get a lot of work last year at Texas, but Gunnar Helm did not exactly suck. The only year Niblack got a real chance to play was 2023, and he caught 21 passes. He can catch, and that's what A&M needs from him. From what little we've seen, he looks like a fluid runner and a steady receiver, which would fit the bill. And my thought from this was basically, I thought that was interesting because the note if Niblack was not allowed to play because of Helm, he's currently working alongside a true freshman and looking better than him, which he should. I think that's kind of telling. I'll be interested to see what Niblack actually looks like this season, because I can't lie. I liked what he looked like at Alabama the first couple of years when he got opportunities, but to say he didn't get an opportunity this year, I think it's a little fabricated, just because a year ago right now, we didn't know Gunnar Helm was going to be, Gunnar Helm and basically start the season off on Mackey Award level output. Mm-hmm. The expectation was, hey, we just got Amari Niblack from Alabama. He's going to come in here and not be Jaleel Billingsley. He's going to come in here and he's going to be a dog, and he's going to get opportunities in this offense to stretch the field. And he didn't do that. So I thought that was maybe the most interesting nugget, just because it's a former Longhorn, and they basically said, they need a big target. They lost Noah Thomas, who you talked about a minute ago. They added a couple of guys in the portal, mainly Casey Concepcion from North Carolina State. And then there's also a nugget on Kelshawn Johnson, the true freshman.
Yeah. And again, check out orangebloods.com. Get that QR code down there. Get all signed up the easiest way possible and get this great content from Cody. He goes through the behind enemy lines stuff each and every week. And then this week, it's not just OU. It's not just A&M. There's a Georgia part of it as well. And it looks into the big games Texas has coming up, but also keeps you abreast of what's going on with the rivals. It's weird, Cody. As I woke up, let's say early this week, you would have had to remind me that Niblack was an Aggie. Yeah. There's just something that I'd forgotten about. And then I saw your note and I'm like, oh, that's right. Amari Niblack ends up at A&M. I do not know what to think of that. I don't, because we all know deep down, I think the Texas coaches would tell you, hey, if Niblack had wanted to stay, would you guys want him? Would he help you? I think the answer would have been yes, right? But how much would he have helped them? How impactful would he truly have been? And then with the Aggies, how does he fit into that offense? We really don't quite know what that offense is at this point with Colin Klein. What does he really want to do with it? You mentioned they list two tight ends. I think that's telling in a lot of ways, but I don't know if they have a badass tight end right now. Armstrong's going to be one.
Yeah.
Maybe. Olstrom's been okay. And, it's cool that he's got the Baby Thor nickname and all that, but I haven't seen Olstrom make plays where I'm thinking, oh Lord, look out. Here it comes. It's not really been that. So I am going to be highly interested in where Niblack fits in with that team. Give me a thought for you, offense as a whole. You watched it last year, in the game against Texas, if not more games. Mm-hmm. You saw him looked pretty good at one point in the season, and then they fell apart at the end like they've done before. What do you make of this Aggie offense going to 2025? Like, what are you going to be watching for?
To be honest, Chad, it's very interesting to me because if you just kind of peruse through Aggie, and I know it's not oh gosh, what's the other site called?
Texags?
Texags. It's not Texags, but it's Aggie. It's fine. It's not great. It's above average. But basically everything is kind of driven around the dynamic of being able to stretch the field, being able to get the ball to these receivers. And I look at like the acquisitions they make, and it kind of would tell you that. My biggest question is the dynamic of the offense and what it looks like as far as I don't trust Reed to grow as a pocket passer and just become this, not that he's ever going to be compatible with like an Arch, but like get to like a John Mateer level, right? Where the legs are there, but get to a level where it's like really competent, where you can depend on this guy in the passing game. You added all the weaponry around him. You added Casey Concepcion. They like Terry Busey. Kelshawn Johnson's probably going to have a role this year. Who's there? Jerome Miles, Mario Craver. Like there's guys there to get the ball out to, and they really want to do that. But it feels like a little bit of a contradiction when you have what's perceived as a strong offensive line. The running back room is going to be healthy when the season comes around, a running quarterback, and you want to run the ball, but then you also want to throw the ball as much as it seems like they want to. So I'm very interested just kind of to see what Reed looks like maybe the most.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great place to start. And yeah, we'll see if that offensive line has gotten a little better. Le'Veon Moss can get back to where he was last year. He really took the step last year and became a big time back. But I'm with you. Like when you say the names, and somebody threw it in as a joke, but I think it does speak to this discussion. Unfortunately, Marcel Reed is their quarterback and Colin Klein is their OC.
That's the whole thing. Like,
Esron,
how do you perceive that though? How do you perceive what the offense is supposed to look like?
Yeah, the unfortunately part that Esron puts in there is a little tongue in cheek or whatever. But yes, Esron, you're right. Those two together, when you say those two things together, it speaks to you're going to run the ball.
Yeah.
You're going to be physical as hell, and you'll take some shots. But take some shots and be a dynamic pass offense are two different things. And the thing I keep talking about, Cody, for everybody in the country, everyone, is you can't survive in college football nowadays unless your offense is dynamic in some way. You can be dynamically tough. You can be dynamically physical, but you can't be boring. Because if you're boring and plodding and 3 yards in a cloud of dust, if you feel like that as an offense, badass receivers don't want to deal with you. Badass running backs don't want to hang out with you. And that is my concern for what A&M's got. It was my concern for Georgia a few years ago before they got it figured out with Monken. They were clunky. That's another word I use a lot to describe an offense that I don't think it's the clunky dynamic scale. You want to be much closer to dynamic than you are to clunky. And the Aggies at times last year, they were too close to the clunky side. They were trying. It feels like Colin Klein's trying to figure out what he's got and what he wants to be. And I mean, they used, two different quarterbacks. I mean, think about the style difference between those two guys. What you're saying to the world of college football if you say Connor Wigman's my guy versus Marcel Reed's my guy. It's just two different ways to do business. So we'll see. Aggies go to Notre Dame in non-conference. That's going to be the game that I think a lot of people will peek in on. Everything else, they go UTSA, Utah State. Later in the year, they play Samford. So those are games that aren't going to teach you anything. At Notre Dame is September 13th. And then, as I mentioned, 2 weeks later, they're going to host Auburn, just like Oklahoma does. So the first conference game for the Aggies, just like OU, I believe, is Auburn. So we'll find out a little bit there. So anyway, check out the article. Great stuff as always. Behind Enemy Lines. Cody, anything else on the Aggies you wanted to mention?
You brought the dynamic piece from a Aggies perspective. What is that dynamic piece outside of Marcel Reed? Like, can you pinpoint that right now? Because like Concepcion is looked at as like a mid 4.4 guy from my knowledge, from what I've watched. The Kelshawn Johnson notes that they had on him were pretty positive. But even
Yeah.
the Concepcion thing was like they comped him like a Christian Kirk type of a player who's, as we know, is not a dynamic burner by any means. He's more of a target hog. But like outside of Reed, what would you perceive as the most dynamic thing in that offense?
I mean, it probably needs to be a receiver. I was hoping it would be Noah Thomas. Obviously, that didn't work out. It's going to have to be Moss, honestly. I mean, it's going to have to be a dynamic run game. It's going to have to be, can he take the step that he took against Arkansas and what he became up until the injury? And you can't talk about their season. I understand the Aggies fell apart, but it's fair to point out that he got hurt. He got hurt on a long run early in the South Carolina game. And then they lose that one, and then they lose Auburn. Like, he was the whole running game. I talked about it all last season. He was the only running back that really stepped up. And I think it's going to have to start with him, but they're going to have to find, to your discussion here, it's going to have to be there's got to be one receiver or tight end that becomes a badass pass catcher, that becomes a target, a danger, however Klein wants to construct it, whether you're taking a deep shot and you're trusting Marcel Reed to do that, whether you're working the ball, down the field, you got to come up with a weapon that scares people. Noah Thomas scared people.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Thomas was a damn good receiver by the time he leaves. And now I think he's going to go show that at Georgia. You got to find somebody that catches the ball that scares you. And I don't know if A&M has it. Could it be Nyblack? Maybe. Could it be Concepcion? Maybe. Could it be, because you just, nowadays, all those transfers aren't made the same. And you're hoping that the guy transfers from school A that feels a little different than maybe where he ends up. And you hope he takes that step. I'm not sure who it is, but that's what it's got to be. It's got to, set it up with Moss, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's Reed a little bit as a runner, but you got to find something in the pass game. Cause I don't buy that A&M offensive line as oh my God, you can't, I don't buy them as they could just run the ball and forget about the rest of it. I don't think they're that good.
Yep.
All right. If you guys want to throw a super chat in, it will go right to the top of the list. Taking a little peek at Oklahoma and A&M since Cody does the Behind Enemy Lines article. It's good stuff there at orangebloods.com. Again, hit that QR code down there. It is the easiest way to get signed up for orangebloods.com. We will hit you with a little bit more coming here right now. Let me remind you, they have vodka out in Dripping Springs at the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Oh, it is so good. Here's some of the cocktails that I have sampled, and there's more out there that I haven't because pineapple is underway. The 9th Deep Eddy flavor is available. Get stocked up. Go get your bottle if you haven't. But also get out to the tasting room and find out what they're mixing up with the pineapple. It'll now be part of the tasting. You get 9 vodkas to taste and learn about. They'll teach you a little bit about the history of it. It's a great time out at the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Indoor and outdoor seating, depending on the weather. They got the great barbecue truck right there on site, Crimson Creek Smokehouse. I'd send you out there just for the barbecue. It's really good. And you get to pair that up with the great drinks out at Deep Eddy. So do it responsibly, have a great time. But we've gone out there with the birthday celebration for our friend Sherry multiple times. That's usually what gets us out there. And right now I'm making plans to get back out to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Check them out. Tell them you heard about it here on Orange Bloods Live during the season. We're even going to be, I think, trying to maybe get House Divided out there to the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room because, it's a tough life and it's a tough job. So we just may have to do it coming up. If you guys want to throw something in the chat, feel free. And right now I do not see any super chats. Chris Bennett, extend Venables, extend Trev Alberts. Yeah. It's interesting, Cody, before we get into this Texas stat, it'll kind of speak to this discussion. But one of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of Texas and this upcoming season, the opportunity in front of Texas when it comes to the rivals. Like, you're 2 years into the SEC. Think about where Texas is and think about those 3 rivals. Mm-hmm. Just go over it in your brain. If I say A&M, OU, Arkansas, Those are the three that they've played these first 2 years. We assume it will continue. SEC can always mess with schedules, but we assume in 26 and beyond, it'll still be Hogs, Sooners, and Aggies that they will play. But think about those teams and where they are. All just again to show all three of them are over there. They're over there on the last 8 teams that did not have those teams don't have a winning record in conference and 9 wins. Those are your rivals, Texas. That's the company they're in. OU being by far the worst of the 3. I didn't expect that. And then Arkansas and A&M, they're okay at times. They can be pretty good at times. But Cody, Texas handled both of them on the road by multiple scores by the end of those games. They were both 10-point games. You could argue they were hard-fought games in some way. But you watched them both. I didn't have any doubt Texas was winning those games as I watched the end of the fourth quarters.
Would you say – so I saw – my brain went this direction when you brought this up because in my column the other day, Ketch commented something along the lines of Oklahoma being like further away from getting back than they really believe they are. Like they're going to have to make – he said basically they're going to have to make massive moves, massive decisions to ever get back – in quote, because people were like commenting like, oh yeah, they'll be back in a couple of years, da 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 da. And he's like, well, no, you don't realize it. It's a different like era of the sport. It's obviously ever growing. The stuff's going to keep growing. Next week's massive for the house settlement and stuff like this. But Oklahoma really needs to kind of take a step back and realize where they're at in order to take 4 steps forward and actually get up to the potential conversation if they want to enter it, in the NIL era. My thought goes to like, so the Texas basketball, the women's basketball team on Friday or today plays South Carolina for the 4th time this year, right? So you're kind of creating a little bit of obviously it's not your A&M, Oklahoma, Arkansas rival, but you're sort of creating a more high-end rival there, right?
Right.
And I venture to ask the question because again, I like to ask these questions because I'm not a guy that went to Texas, went to A&M, went to Oklahoma, went to any of these schools in this conversation. I'm very much an outsider inside the Texas ethos right now. If Oklahoma stays at this level where you could sort of say I wouldn't say they're at an Arkansas level, but they're sort of closer to an Arkansas level than they are at Texas level right now. Right? Does that Georgia, because of where Georgia's at with Kirby, does a Georgia potential rivalry, because you end up playing them once, sometimes twice, and always potentially a 3rd time per season, does that potentially like not get to the level of the Oklahoma-Texas rivalry? Obviously, I'm not trying to say that at all. That's a hot take. I understand that. But does that sort of like, does that ever get up there and like be like, yeah, it's Georgia, like it's becoming a rival rather than, because again, like I said, and like Ketch said in the thing, like Oklahoma's much further away than they even realize they are. So this thing could really go on. I'm not going to say Texas is going to win the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Red Rivers, but I'm not saying they're not,
I mean, it all depends on how you want to label it. I get what you're asking. And you brought up a great example, Texas and South Carolina and women's basketball.
Yeah.
To me, it's like they're never gonna be rivals in the traditional sense, but maybe if you wanted to call it heated rivals, blue blood rivals, or top of the mountain kind of rivals. Ketch threw out a couple years ago, or the last years we were going in, that the importance of the Oklahoma game was going to continue to go down, especially now, and it really feels like it could happen now. So when Texas does play Georgia, it's going to feel different because it's going to be different. And, does it ultimately take over that rivalry? No, because Texas and Oklahoma are going to be a rival forever, the way Georgia and Auburn are. Does it really matter what Georgia and Auburn's records are in those years? No. Does it matter what Bama and Tennessee are doing at the moment they play? No, they've still got cigars ready. It's still a rivalry. All that stuff. Texas and Arkansas, it's still going to be a rivalry. But what you're speaking to is when you can get to that rare air at the top, that's what's key. So like for the person where'd that chat go? It's an interesting way to phrase it. I don't agree with this chat, but I know what they're saying. Hunter says Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon will be the rivals moving forward.
Recruiting.
it's not technically true, but I know what Hunter's saying, right? I know where he's going, but that's not going to be your rival. That's going to be the bad, that's going to be your Bills-Chiefs games. The Bills and Chiefs are not division rivals. They're not historic rivals, but they have clashed in games that matter on a whole different level. That's what whatever you want to call that, that's what, yes, Texas and Georgia, Texas and these other teams, that's what it's going to be.
So I think that's where it gets interesting. Is this is a great comment here from Hunter, is that it's the recruiting route. Those right there. Again, I talk about almost every week in the Behind Enemy Lines. When I go through A&M's site and I go through Oklahoma's site, A&M's got a couple more guys that, because A&M, I don't know what they've been doing, but they've been getting some good dudes on campus, and even some 5-stars that Texas doesn't even really care to go after on campus. Oklahoma, you can go through that whole site and you can go like multiple days and not find the name of a recruit that is actively being recruited by Texas. And you can go, it's like 3-star, 3-star, 3-star. And then, you have the commenters go, are we going to get a 5-star on campus? A 4-star? Can I get a 4-star on campus one of these days? It's like, that's where Oklahoma's at in that conversation. So you're always going to have, like you said, the Arkansas, A&M, Oklahoma rival, because it's right here. But this one right here, Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, they're being built not only because of the massive matchups between Texas and Georgia, because of the national semifinals between Ohio State and Texas. Oregon, I mean, they're going to be in that conversation as well. But those three right there, Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas, the 4 horsemen of recruiting right now, is creating another layer to the rivalries that are, it's a different rivalry, but it's still rivalry, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
I think that's kind of where my brain went, maybe.
Yeah. And like, last week I did a post on orangebloods.com kind of talking about the 25 season and how important I think it is. Part of it is it's keeping those rivals down. Sandman said, let's be real, OU and Arky have lame duck coaches. Sandman, they might. They've at least got weird feels to their coaches. Well, what about the Aggie situation? Is Elko a badass? Not yet. Is he good? He looked pretty good at times last year, but is he an absolute, oh my God, look what the Aggies had? Not quite. So while you've got the opportunity, you keep your foot on the neck as much as you can. By the way, Sandman threw in, only reason the Aggie and Arkansas games were close is because of Quinn. Sandman, I get the point you're making. And it should be also pointed out that the game in College Station felt like it was about to be 24-0. And maybe it goes to 31-0. I don't know. But there was a moment in that game where the Longhorns were thrashing the Aggies.
That was that pick six, right? That pick six, basically.
Yeah. They were tearing them up. If Quinn doesn't make the mistakes, that clearly changes that ball game. And y'all know I will tell you, if the Aggie coach valued points, it might be different. But he didn't. It's a different discussion. We don't have to get into that. Hunter throws in full separation from the rivals after 2026. Texas will be standing on a mountain above them. Hunter, they are certainly above them right now. And again, they're above them in a way you didn't expect. Now, you could have told me you thought the Aggies and the Hogs might not be terrific. And I'd have told you, yeah, they're going to probably they're fighting from the middle, trying to claw their way to the top. But I don't think anybody thought OU was going this far down, this quickly. And 2 conference wins and only got 2 because of some barely. Auburn barely, they barely get by. And then the Bama game is just a weird outlier. But Hunter, I think you might be right. And that's the concern for OU, A&M, Arkansas is, are you about to watch Texas just kind of go off into the sunset? Our man Chris Bennett says when the SEC announcement was made, Texas was in a terrible place. I was terrified. Things can change quick, can't they, Chris? Things can change really quickly. And they certainly did there. All right. If you guys want to throw a super chat in, again, it will get to the top of the list. Let's remind you about Hijack, and then I'll tell you about this crazy stat that Sark's going to be chasing this year. Hijackpoker.com. It's where Jeff Ketchum, Alex Dunlap, and all the cool card players go to play online Line Poker. You can put that app on any device you want, and you might end up in a game with one of those two guys or both. Hijackpoker.com. You can deposit all kinds of ways, and you can deposit and cash out at one of those 6 Texas Card House locations. So if you want to jump in, go ahead. Cody Carpentier, are you a Hijack Poker player? Is this your thing?
I grew up around a lot of friends that played poker. We played a lot of table poker in high school, but I was never good at it, so I never got into the online poker.
Okay, there you go. Fair enough. I am with you. That's not my thing. Not my thing. I don't have enough money or skill to get involved in such a thing.
My thing's patience. I don't have a lot of patience to sit there and I'm very much I guess I could easily explain it in saying like a pyro mentality, where I'm just like very much like, if fire starts, right? If somebody starts a fire, I'm like, I'm there. Like, I want this thing to get as big as possible, as quick as possible, type of a thing. So like when I'm like, sit down and play poker, sit down and play blackjack, things like this, like, cause I want it to be big. I want it to be all in. I want the most extravagant thing that can happen. I want it to happen as fast as possible. And that's just not how you win or succeed playing games.
Yeah. No, I think you're yeah. It's a good way to say it. Mark jumps in with a super chat real quick. $5. Chad, thanks for being a good sport about the Aggie jab. Numbers/taxes are what I do, and I need some OBHD to provide a nice distraction today. Mark, thank you for saying it, and we are glad to provide your distraction. So here's the further distraction for you, and just something to keep in mind as we get towards the season. Y'all know I love numbers and data and looking stuff up, and something hit me this week that I decided to look up, and I'm glad I did. I thought, well, wait a minute. Texas is the only team that has been in the Final Four the last couple of years. So I'm like, well, that means they would have finished top 4 in the last 2 years. Have they ever done 3 in a row? And if so, how many times? So I look it up, and what we're talking about here is AP finish. Last couple years, they finished 3 and 4. In those respective years. So I asked myself, how many times has it ever happened? Texas fans, Darrell Royal did this one time, and that's it. This is how rare it is. This is what Steve Sarkisian's going after in 2025. So from 61 to 63, Darrell Royal had 3 straight top 4s. Number 3, then number 4, and then, of course, they win it all in 63. National champs. That's the only time it's ever happened for Texas. There were other opportunities. Royal missed the opportunity in 71. Mack had 2 opportunities. Missed it in 06, and he missed it in 2010. We will not go through the details of 2010 on today's show. That would be sick for all of you Texas fans. You don't want that. So this is only the 5th opportunity for it to happen ever in the history of Texas football. Sark has a shot at that. If they finish top 4 again, it would only be the 2nd time it's ever happened. It would be something Mack never did. It would be something only Darrell Royal ever did. So just a stat to keep in mind. Somebody on the Orange Bloods message board, maybe they were baiting me, but they also knew I'd look it up. They said, well, how many times? Well, what about A&M? Here it is. You ready? Everybody that loves Aggie sadness. Chris Bennett, make sure you're tuned in, brother, because I know you love Aggie tears. Get ready. A&M, history of the program, only has 2 top 4 AP finishes ever. Not 2 in a row, 2 total. 1939, which you guys like to remind me about from time to time, the national championship, and in 2020, the COVID year, when they go and win the Orange Bowl. So,
wow.
Not even the Johnny team, not some of those, all the teams you're thinking of right now that you might be thinking of, they did not finish top 4 in the AP. So the Aggies don't even have a back-to-back. Those 2 years are separated by like 81 years of football. There's no back-to-back for the Aggies. In Texas's case, there have been multiple back-to-backs. They just have only gotten one time where they go 3 straight years of top 4. Arkansas, none. They've never done it. They've had a couple top 4 finishes, but not 3 in a row. Just to give you comparisons of the powers that be right now, Ohio State has 9 of them historically. That's pretty impressive. They did it in the 80s. They had a string in the 70s, couple strings in the 70s.
Wait. 9 back-to-backs or 9 with 3 straight?
They have 9 instances of 3 in a row.
Holy cow.
Right. They had a 3 in a row in the 80s, a 3 in a row in the 70s. They had a 5 in a row in the 70s. So I'm being technical there. When you go 5 in a row, that counts as 3, right? Because you get your 3 in a row, then you do it again, and then you do it again. They also had a run of 6 in a row. 6 years in a row, they were top 4 in the 50s.
Whoa.
So that counts as, 4? Because you go 3 in a row, and then you go 4, 5, 6. So you keep that string going. Yeah. So they have 9 total. The greatest run ever, Cody, is probably Bobby Bowden in Florida State. He went 13 years in a row where he was top 4. Like, everybody let that soak in for a second. From 1987 to 1999, the Seminoles finished top 4 in the AP. Finished top 4 in the AP. So if you want to get technical, that's 11 consecutive 3-year runs of top 4. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this stat. Alabama has 5 total. Ohio State has just 2 ever. 2 times. They went three straight years of top 4. And how about Georgia? Once ever, just like Texas. And we just watched it, 21 to 23. When they, including a national title, that is their only time. It's a pretty rare deal. Wow. 3 years in a row where you're top 4 in the AP. So just keep that in mind, Texas fans, as we start through the year 2025. Arch is your quarterback, and Steve Sarkisian's trying to hit that kind of a mark. And who knows? Maybe he does what Darrell Royal did. Royal got his first title in this manner in 1963. Got his first championship after going top 3. Then he was top 4. And then he goes and wins it all. So just something to keep in mind. Also, I loved on Orange Blood, somebody asked me, Chad, why'd you do top 4 and not top 5? Because if you did top 5, Royal did this and this and this. And I'm like, well, wait a second. It's Sark's fault. Don't blame me. Yeah. I made the stat as elite as it needed to be. Sark didn't finish 5 in 2023 or 24. He finished 3rd and 4th. So I made the stat elite because Sark did.
You didn't move the goalposts.
Right. I'm not exactly. That's it, Cody. I wanted to make the stat what it was. I never try to adjust those things ahead of time. I want to find the stat and then say, okay, now let's fairly look at it for everybody. But it's awesome stuff. So as you're watching this season, Texas fans, understand it's only the 5th time. It's only the 5th season ever where it's been possible for Texas to do this. And Sark's going to try to pull it off. So just kind of cool, nerdy football stuff. But keep it in mind, because if they go top 4 again, that's some big history for Sark.
I just looked up the one that came to mind. 2 that came to mind was Clemson and Florida. And I looked up Florida because I just assumed that Urban Meyer early 2000s. But it looks like they won the championship, and then they finished 13th. Then they won the championship. Then they finished 3rd. And then they were preseason ranked 4 and dropped out. So Florida under Urban never did it, but under Steve Spurrier,
they would have done it. Did they?
Yeah, they went 2-1-4 and then 5. So they went 3 years in the top 4. But that was in 95, 96, 97. To make you feel old, that was the year I was born. Was 96.
Oh, come on, don't do that.
Right in the middle of the Spurrier one. But the Clemson had to have gotten on there, right? I didn't look at
Clemson. It'd be interesting to check. Obviously, it would be this most recent time with them winning those 2 titles. Like, I would assume they probably had a 3-year run of top 4. I did not look up Clemson though. If you want to look them up.
Clemson, oh yeah, because they played in 4 championships. So
yeah,
they went 2-1-4. 1, 2. So they went 6 straight.
6 in a row. That's impressive.
Yeah. But that was obviously the only time in their history that they ever did that. Because that's
so the only school I found that had 6 in a row, other than the Florida State run, was Ohio State. 52 to 57, they finished in the top 4.
That Florida State run is, my uncle's a Florida State fan. He's got the Bobby Bowden book, the Bobby Bowden autograph football. He's always loved Bobby Bowden, and I'm always like, I'm a Hurricane fan because of it. Mm-hmm. That was always my bit with my uncle growing up.
Right.
13 years that is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
That's the longest ever.
It's so salty. Yeah, I think so. I don't believe anybody else has had one that competes with that. And then if you want to, again, move the goalpost slightly, the very next year they finished 5th. So you could, if you want to make it a top 5, they went 14 years of a top 5 finish. But I can remember during the run as it was happening, once we got into the 90s and it was continuing, it was just sort of a joke in college football. It's like, well, we know Florida State's finishing top 4.
Yeah.
It just became a thing here. And the other thing for people that think that I was sort of molding it somehow with top 5, again, Texas is the only team to get to the Final Four the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's, again, why I was trying to make it as elite as possible, because that's what Texas is doing. And that's why, because, no Longhorn fan is watching this year and saying, well, the bar is top 5. No one does. Nobody. The bar is get back to where you've been. The bar is, can Arch and this crew get you back to the semis, and then you figure out what you couldn't against the Huskies and what you couldn't against the Buckeyes. Can you make that next step? At least you obviously want to win it all, but you can't win a championship game if you never play in it. You got to get there. So it's a rare air first world problem discussions. It is tears on a yacht, like Sark talks about, although there really aren't any tears on that yacht right now, other than, you can't.
You're on the yacht by yourself right now.
Yeah, you're on the yacht by yourself, and the tears would be you weren't able to get by Michael Penix and that group, and you weren't able to get by, Will Howard and that group, and now you got to figure out, how do you take those next steps? So just something to look for as we get into the season. And we do thank you guys for jumping in today. All right, before we wrap up, Cody, I did whip up some buy or sell for you. Are you ready?
Always. Unprepared this time. I don't have any for you. First time.
It's okay.
It's
okay. You know what? You almost choked to death during a show this week, man. Come on. I'm not expecting you to come up with buy or sells. I am expecting good answers, though. And we're going to start with the discussion I just threw out. So buy or sell number 1, you think Texas gets a top 4 finish in 2025? Buy or sell?
Yes, buy. And I'm going to reiterate something I said a little over a year ago. I jumped on the Modcast for my first ever appearance on the Modcast a little over a year ago with Anwar, Jason, and I think it was maybe Alex. And I got into a little bit of a heated spiff with Jason because the question was, will Texas ever not make the college football playoff under Sark?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why not? Why? I think they're ready to take that step forward. They had just made the college football playoff, and that was why the conversation had spurned. Now they made it again. You're going into the Arch era. I'm expecting you to make it this year and next year. Who knows what happens after that? If Sark is even here, and that's kind of why I liked to take my side of that thing is, I'll take it for a top 4 finish this year and a top 4 finish next year.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. We'll see if they can do it. And again, it would hit that stat if they do. Let's go to those Texas women, Cody. Buy or sell number 2. You think the women beat South Carolina tonight and get to the championship game?
Don's got them twice this year. Vic's got them once. Man, I like where Texas is at. I'm going to watch it. We're going to do Football with Friends half an hour early tonight, so we'll be out just in time for the game to start. I'm going to go. This thing comes down to the last bucket in overtime, and I'm going to go South Carolina by 1.
Oh, he's slightly selling there. Yeah, I think I'm doing that too. I'll challenge him. I hope Vic and the team prove us wrong, but I agree with you. I think South Carolina is a little bit better. Good reminder from Cody there. Football with Friends, 5:30 tonight, so they can wrap up and everybody can watch the Texas women's Final Four. Best of luck to Vic and the crew in that one, getting it done. Then it's UCLA and UConn. Good Final Fours on the women's side. 3 1s and a 2, and the 2 seed's the favorite right now. UConn's like a 6 or 7 point favorite over the 1 seed UCLA, and I think they're going to be favored to beat Texas or South Carolina. So we'll see if Paige Beckers can get all that done or what happens, but good stuff. All right, how about the men's side, Cody? Buy or sell number 3, you like U of H, the Cougars in San Antonio to win it all.
100%. That's a big buy. Shout out to Coach Sampson. I love Houston, man. I wanted Houston or Alabama to win this thing. Alabama didn't really nuke my bracket. I actually had a pretty strong bracket up until Alabama got got taken out because they were my champion. But I'll go Houston takes it all.
Okay, like U
Bye.
of H. All right, here's where I might feel old. I might, but I don't think so. It's a birthday today. Buy or sell number 4, Heath Ledger. Would have been 46 today. Rest in peace. You have seen The Dark Knight.
Oh, bye. Been a while. Bye.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
All
a
right.
kid. I was what the hell? I must have been low teens, maybe.
I'll say, what are you? If you tell me when you were what, 14 when that movie came out? It came out in 08.
I was born in 96, so 12. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
the thing was I wasn't a big, I don't think I watched it when I was 12. I probably watched it when I was like 16 or 17 because I was not a big, never been a big Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, anything like that.
Okay.
But I definitely remember watching it. Yes, bye.
Yeah. Hell of a performance. I would have waited till I was 16 or 17. I think you'd made the right move because that at 12, I don't think I would have slept that night. Like, dude, Heath Ledger's Joker's terrifying. Kids, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is a wild performance. And finally, Cody, let's tap into your draft knowledge. Buy or sell number 5, Matthew Golden will be the first wide receiver drafted.
Bye. I think it's the definition, and everyone asks the question really in NFL draft circles, and everyone that's maybe not in the NFL draft circles is like, man, is Matthew Golden really the first receiver that's going to go off the board? And does the speed really mean that much? At first, the speed really doesn't mean that much. It's a nice token. It's just like it was last year with Adonai Mitchell. The play speed isn't really the game speed, the play speed isn't really what he ran at the combine. That speed. The thing with Golden in conjunction with this class is that there's no alpha. There's no Jamar Chase. There's no Malik Neighbors. There's no true elite specimen at the position. Luther Burden had a chance to be that, but his profile is a little bit incomplete, small hands. Tedero McMillan, everyone wants to run out to Tedero McMillan from Arizona, but even he's a 4.6 guy. They're going to come off the board very close to each other, but I'm going to go Matthew Golden comes off first. You see the Dallas Cowboys in a lot of the conversations. My latest mock dropped today, and that had him going to the Cardinals to play opposite of Marvin Harrison Jr., which I absolutely, once I did it, I fell in love with it. So let's send Matthew Golden out to make Kyler Murray a little bit better, I guess.
Going to say worse things to do than catch some passes from Kyler and go live out in Arizona. That could be nice. Could be very nice. Pretty part of the world. There you go. That comes up, by the way, a little less than 3 weeks now. I guess technically we're 20 days away from day 1 of the draft. That means here's another marker for you, Texas fans. As we're talking today on this Friday, we're exactly 3 weeks away from Schlossnagle against the Aggies in baseball. The series that was going to be one thing, and now it feels like it's going to be something a little different. Let's see what the Aggies do with the other UT this weekend as they head to Knoxville. Good grief. And Texas brings Georgia in for a wild series. That could be an interesting one to watch as well. We are also 148 days away from Arch Manning in Texas at Ohio State. Who's Ohio State's quarterback going to be? Do we know that for sure? Do we have that name on our board?
Supposed to be Julian Sayin, but they haven't been very happy with him. There's a kid from Tavian St. Clair was a 2025 kid that they like a lot.
Okay.
But the other, the wild card one, I always get his name wrong. They called him, the Midwestern people called him the South Dakota Heisman Trophy winner. Lincoln Keenholz, number 3. He's a dark horse. But yeah, they're kind of in a, let's not say they're in a Michigan situation. Remember last year going into that Michigan game, it was like every week. I remember on the behind enemy lines, it was like, it's going to be this guy. It's going to be this guy. It's all 3 options are good. It just depends on which one kind of rises above and takes the cake. But yeah, there's no clear cut right now for Ohio State.
Yeah, interesting. We'll see what that looks like. Again, that's 148 days away. Before we get out of here, how about another super chat? Thank you, Sailor Joe, for that $5. Buy or sell. Texas finally makes the championship but loses, or Texas makes the Final Four again and loses. Arch comes back the following season either way. Wow. You put a lot in there, so I'm just going to buy because it's a lot of a cover there. I definitely think the last part is a buy. Arch is back for 27. Yeah. Excuse me, for 26. Yeah, I right now I'll put my money on one of those 2 things happening. Might make the championship game and lose, or they might make the Final Four and lose. But actual national championship, I can't go quite that far today, Cody. What about you?
I'll answer this, but let me ask this thing first to you, Chad.
Mhm.
What do you think would be perceived as a more worse situation? You lose 3 consecutive semifinal games, or you get to the championship and then you get beat? What would you rather not be sitting in?
Lose the semi again.
Gosh.
You rather, I mean, because then you've taken a step. You went and played for it. You went and played at the at the highest level. You advanced to think about where we are now. You advanced through this playoff system all the way to the championship game.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want about what Notre Dame did or didn't throw out, and that actually ended up being, I guess, an okay game for a while, whatever. But you got there. I always give that team a little extra love, especially now that they have to work their way through it. So that's what I would tell you. Man, if I'm a Texas fan today, just do not tell me I got to sit through another semifinal loss. I'd much rather lose in the title game.
It's just, I mean, the thing is, like, I think I agree with you, but then if you play it in a projection and you go, yeah, you made the national championship, but you got beat by 21 or something, it's like, okay, well,
now how you lose, obviously, there's another. You don't want that.
You get boat raced or you lose on a late second field goal and you're just pissed. Yeah. It's like,
would you
rather not been there? But yeah, I think you're right. You'd rather make it and lose than 3 consecutive semifinal losses would be like, not that we're even close to this conversation yet, but like if you're looking at resumes with like Sark and Saban, you're like, yeah, well, that guy didn't even make the championship 3 consecutive seasons. He tried to get there and he couldn't do it. And Saban's got the rings. It kind of becomes like the Jordan LeBron thing, right? Where it's like, well, he couldn't finish the job, where the other guy, all he did was finish the job.
Yeah, it just becomes a thing eventually, like back in the day before he broke through when Andy Reid got known as get to the championship game but can't get any farther. And in this case, like if I gave you the choice, if I don't tell you the results, I think you definitely want to get to that next level. But even if I did, Cody, even if I told a Texas fan today, okay, you can lose the semifinal by 4, or you can lose the championship game by 17. What do you want to do? I'd want to lose the title game by 17. I know that sucks, but at least I got to the title game, right? It means I won the semi. Maybe.
I'm sorry. I just Alan McCada just killed me with that.
Semifinal Sark. How dare you, Alan? How dare you? That is not going to catch on. That is not going to catch on. Oh my God. That's funny. All right. Thank you for that final super chat before we exit. Cody Carpentier, nice enough to jump in today. And again, early football with friends. If you are watching us live or maybe just in the middle of the afternoon and catching up, 5:30, they're going to do a show. And then, we're all going to be watching Texas women against South Carolina and see what kind of game that is in Chapter 4. That happens at 6 o'clock. So they're going to do a show a little early at 5:30. Football with friends. And also Monday, Overreaction. Hopefully Jeff Ketchum and Anwar will be on that show, 9 a.m. on Monday. Again, shout out to Ketch. He's been dealing with some family stuff the last couple of days. We hope everything's cool in the Ketchum house and hope they have a great weekend. We hope all of you have a great weekend as well. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and getting those notifications. If you didn't like on the way in, go ahead and like on the way out. It does make a difference. We appreciate your support. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday at high noon for another House Divided.